Greetings and salutations. My name is OJ as always, and welcome back to another episode of the Overwatch-a-thon, a series of videos where I go over every single character in, well, Overwatch. I'll be covering their lore and personality, their gameplay and abilities, as well as their design and cosmetics. With all of that preamble done and dusted, like, comment and subscribe if you feel so inclined and enjoy the rest of the video. And today's object of obsession is the unethical excellency that is Moira. Now, as I like to do in all of these videos thus far, let's start by talking about Moira's backstory, lore, history, whatever fancy word you wish to use it. And interestingly, we don't actually start with Moira's, say, upbringing, unlike most of the characters that I've discussed about so far. Instead, we start with her work as a scientist, where Moira only cared about the evolutionary advancement of humanity. Over a decade ago, she made waves when she published a controversial paper detailing a methodology for creating custom genetic programs that could alter DNA at a cellular level. It seemed like a promising step towards overcoming diseases and disorder and maximizing human potential. Dissent amongst her peers soon followed. Many considered her work to be dangerous because of its perceived ethical shortfalls, and Moira was even accused of having the same unchecked desire for scientific advancement that some believed had caused the Omnic crisis. In addition, other geneticists were unable to reproduce the results of Moira's research, which further called her discoveries into question. Instead of kickstarting her career, her paper seriously damaged her reputation. Overwatch was among those who condemned her research, and in Moira's own words, tried to silence her. However, she received a lifeline from the very same source, that being Overwatch's covert ops division Blackwatch, more specifically from Gabriel Reyes, the head of Blackwatch, who wanted someone who could help advise him on matters pertaining to genetics. Her employment was kept a closely guarded secret. She continued her work in the shadows while developing new weapons and technologies for the organization. Freed from her shackles, her genetic research greatly accelerated. She had interaction with Blackwatch members Jesse McCree and Genji Shimada, all of whom had their likes and dislikes pertaining to each other. Among her experiments was one done on Reyes himself. Her experiments on Reyes gave him superhuman abilities, causing his cells to regenerate and decay at a hyper-accelerated rate, which of course resulted in the Reaper persona. Beyond this point, I'm going to go a little bit less scripted, because we get to the point where Moira took place in the Retribution missions, the Archives missions that are for some reason not in the game anymore in any way, shape or form. At least I don't remember them having been brought back in a while. Either way, this mission specifically to Moira is not particularly important. However, what is important is the fallout of the thing, where after the kind of fallout of the mission, it revealed the existence of Blackwatch to the world, and as a result, also revealed Moira's research to the world, and many high-ranking Overwatch officials disavowed all knowledge of her affiliation with them, and both herself as well as the other members of Blackwatch were all put under suspension. Now, due to this uncovering after the events in Venice, Retribution, Moira was forced to turn to unconventional sources of funding. She continued her work as part of the shadowy Talon organization, and as the organization's geneticist, she altered Emily Lacroix's, is that how you say her name? Emily Lacroix? I think that's how you say it. Physiology to improve her aim, drastically slowing her heart, which turned her skin cold and blue and numbed her ability to experience human emotion. A few years after the same Venice incident, Overwatch HQ was destroyed in a fight between Reyes and Jack Morrison. Reyes barely survived the ordeal and was saved by Moira, who injected him with an amplified version of the substance she had injected him with years ago. She claimed that he'd been close to death and had no alternative when it came to saving his life. Whatever the truth of the claim, Reyes was alive, albeit in a state of agony. Talon continued to aid Moira in her experiments in exchange for utilizing the results for their own purposes. But while Moira worked with Talon in secret, she maintained appearances in the scientific community. She was enjoyed to join the scientific collective that had founded the city of Oasis, becoming their Minister of Genetics. However, some whispered of her connections to Talon, and by the time of Doomfist's return to the same organization, Moira had a seat on Talon's inner council. Moira's goals of pushing forward human evolution meshed well with Talon's, and she found a patron for her research in Doomfist. And unfortunately, this is where her own personal lore ends. I'm not joking, it just stops. Okay, Moira, to me, is an incredibly interesting character that I like a lot. However, she suffers a lot from her own specific personal story just kind of being cut short and never being expanded upon since her release in, like, what, 2018? I think she came out in 2018? Someone would have to correct me on that. But, like, Moira's story just kind of stops here. We do not have any future developments for her. We do not have any future involvements outside of, like, you know, like, the most future involvements we kind of get is we learn that she's kind of partially responsible for the way Sigma is, after he was obviously added later on. Well, it wasn't that later on, was it? I don't remember the release of Overwatch 1 characters. It's been a hot minute. I mean, yeah, it's been a hot minute. It's been like 7 years since some of these characters got added. But yeah, like, Moira's story and personality are very interesting. I love, like, you know, Mercy is obviously a good person to kind of compare her to. Mercy is kind of like a goody two-shoes doctor, Hippocratic oath, all of that palaver. Moira is the complete opposite. She is not bound by ethics or kind of sense of care for anyone. She is literally pushing anything and everything to the point of human evolution, including experimenting on, you know, like, innocent pet bunnies and herself. She is a bit of an over-exaggeration of, like, you know, like an evil scientist. However, I do find her very interesting in the, like, kind of the distances she will go to, you know, achieve her goal. And of course, she is very important to the existence of multiple other characters. I already mentioned Sigma and his mental state. That's kind of his fault, sorta. But a lot of his like powers and his continued kind of siding with Talon is mostly due to Moira kind of manipulating him into staying here. But she is also responsible, as I mentioned again, for Reaper. Like, the persona of Reaper is her fault. After the fallout in the fight between Reyes and Jack Morrison, she injected him. He probably didn't need the injection, but for the sake of, you know, human evolution, for the sake of progress, she decided to do that. And now his cells are constantly killing themselves and then regenerating just as quickly, which leaves Reaper in a state of basically dying and coming back to life every, like, half a second. It's genuinely horrific to think about. I know people, like, make fun of Reaper for being like, pain, but, like, yeah, if your cells were regenerating and dying just as quickly as they were regenerating, I would be in immense pain as well. I would be complaining about that said pain. And of course, she's also responsible for Widowmaker, and as a result, also kind of responsible for the fall of Overwatch, because the death of, what was his name? Gerard? Is that Widowmaker's husband? If I remember rightly, that is his name. She's also technically responsible for the death of Mondata as well. Like, she's Moira by proxy, just by doing the things that she does, has caused a lot of deaths and a lot of things to go horribly wrong. Like, the death of Mondata is by technicality on her hands, because if she had never made Widowmaker, who would have killed Mondata, right? So it's kind of interesting how her, like, hands are just in everything. Like wherever you look, there will be traces of Moira. But unfortunately, I do wish her own personal story was developed a little bit, especially with the release of Overwatch 2, because her design, which of course I'll mention more when we get to it, has changed drastically and shown that she is still experimenting on herself to an extreme degree. And I wish we knew exactly what she is doing to herself, because it is interesting. I find her unethicalness just interesting to me personally. I know she's a bit exaggerated, and I do wish she obviously had more development, but what's there is crumbs that are interesting enough for me to become quite attached. And I do think, as I mentioned, personality-wise, she's very interesting. She's very fun to listen to. Her voice actress does a fantastic job. She really sells that kind of just lack of care for almost anyone and anything that she doesn't find interesting. Like, the only time she doesn't, like, you know, mock someone or kind of dismiss them is usually in cases where they're interesting, right? Like, for example, she weirdly has an interest in Junkrat, going as far as to call him my strange little friend, which that's probably the first time anyone's actually been nice to Junkrat. and it's the woman who has absolutely no sense of ethics and wants to experiment on him. Like, poor sod. Junkrat deserves better sometimes. But, like, she's just... To me, she's just interesting. I think the idea of someone having, like, you know, literally no ethics in any way, shape, or form is cool. And I'm looking at some of the interactions on my screen right now. I just realized she's probably also partially responsible for the way that Mauna is, because she does remind him to take his supplements, whatever the hell that means. But yeah, she's just interesting, right? Like, the idea of a completely unethical scientist. I know they go a little bit overboard with it, with the whole, like, experimenting on bunnies thing, but, you know, that does sell it to the person. Like, most people would be, you know, shocked or horrified at someone experimenting on cute little bunnies, so it kind of gets the point across quite easily. And rather interestingly, Lifeweaver and Moira kind of have a back and forth. Like, not like Lifeweaver, someone who obviously wants to protect life, actually doesn't seem as offended by Moira's sheer existence as Mercy does, which I think is quite interesting. He also does point out her kind of artificial sort of whatever the hell happens to her with her weird purple arm. He does point that out. And she responds with, "I've always thrived under a deadline." Meaning she's probably, you know, kind of withering away from the inside out. She's literally on a deadline of her own life. But hey, as long as she achieves progress or evolution, that doesn't matter to her. Which I think, of course, makes for an interesting character. Unfortunately, they haven't really done anything with the interesting character in question. But honestly, as Overwatch is kind of now moving into this newer phase, I'm sure some of you noticed the other day when they released the mid-season update, they have now added a story segment onto the main menu. I do think we could potentially see some development for her, because with Null Sector now gone and kind of pulled back from the fight, I feel like the next big option or the big threat is probably going to be Talon in some way. Of course, the She-Wolf of Retribution, the new hero that we're going to get a trailer for, and at the time of making this video, in 4 days, who will probably play a big part, right? But Talon's like one of the only two bad guy groups, right? It's Null Sector and Talon. They've always been like the big bads of Overwatch. And they've been sitting on the sidelines for quite a long while, kind of tiding their time until they can make an entrance. So, who knows? We might actually see more Moira lore soon? Maybe? Potentially? It would be nice to see an actual, like, confrontation between Moira and Mercy, as the game kind of hypes them up as, like, two sides of the same coin, and there is obviously similarities between the two, but still, I do find it rather interesting that Mercy and Moira don't actually have, you know, too many interesting interactions. It's usually just, there's 3 of them, and all of them kind of can be summed up with Mercy pointing out, "Hey Moira, you do unethical stuff," and she's like, "Yeah, for progress." Yeah, for progress. Who cares about them little buddies? I'm gonna experiment on for progress, right? But yeah, we could potentially see some advancements in our own lore, but I wouldn't really, like, you know, bet on it. We know what Overwatch is like. We should never bet on Overwatch. We should just be happy with what we get. Or when we get it. You get the idea. Either way. With all of that done and dusted, I would like to now talk about her gameplay and abilities. Please do keep in mind that I use OBS to record my audio and gameplay simultaneously, so if I sound slightly different in the transition, I do apologise in advance. But with all of that preamble done and dusted, let us now talk about Moira's gameplay and abilities. Right, so here we are in the ever so lovely and ever so helpful training range to talk about Moira's gameplay. And as I usually do, well, there's no unique passive this time, so we're not going to start there. We're going to start with her weapon, that being the Biotic Grasp, which has, quite uniquely, and you'll notice this with the rest of her kit, 2 modes, that being some form of damage mode and some form of healing mode. Let's go over the damage mode first, because this is, you know, easier to understand. It is a long-range beam weapon the damage from the beam heals you and replenishes your biotic energy. Now, it does 65 damage per second, it heals you for 30 per second, and has a range of 19.3 meters. That is a awfully specific range. And due to it being a beam, it obviously cannot be countered by things such as Genji's Deflect, Sigma's, what's that called? What is his black hole thing called? I don't actually remember the name of it. Or D.Va's Matrix as well as another example. And as you can see on the screen, it deals 30% reduced damage to armor. So it's not good to just, attack a tank or something with it. Just like try and suck. I call it the suck, right? There's no, see, I'm gonna have to be careful how I word it, but you can't just like suck the tank, right? You can't just do that because you're doing like 30% less damage. Either way, this is it's kind of hard to talk about Moira's weapon without talking about the other half. So, actually, I'm just going to talk about both of them simultaneously. You actually have the Biotic Grasp, which is your healing. It does 80 per second on hit and 17 per second over time. It has a energy bar, which is, it's just as an example. If I use up some of the healing, of course, there is the bar on the side of the screen, and that energy will very slowly regenerate over time. Now, if you wish to regenerate it quicker, you do damage. Moira is probably the best example of the duality thing that they've tried to do with quite a few heroes, actually. Like characters like Baptiste can do damage and heal simultaneously. Lifeweaver can do damage and heal kind of back and forth. Obviously, he has to swap between the two forms. Mercy, if you want to include her as well, can heal and also use her pistol for defense. Same with Juno. Like every character in this game kind of has like some way to deal damage and heal at the same time. The only ones who don't is like, I don't know, I guess Wu Yang, kinda. Wu Yang's main damage source. I guess Zen. Zen's healing isn't really tied to his primary. So, and Brig doing damage heals people. So I don't know. But I'd still say like Moira is probably the best example of them really trying to push the idea that you kind of swap between the two. Because literally, you cannot heal without doing damage. Like if I know it takes a long ass time, but if you used up all of your biotic energy and just reduced it to nothing, you would look how slow it charges up, right? It's pathetically slow. They are literally telling you, hey, do some damage. Do damage, man. Go kill people whilst you're healing at the same time. Like that's kind of it says 12.5 per second for the cost. But look at the regen rate for its passive. 2.4% per second. That is abysmally slow. But then it jumps up to 15% per second when you're dealing damage. You see the idea, right? The healing over time, by the way, lasts for 3 seconds. So a lot of the time, you can just kind of like spray it once in a person's direction, do the 80 initial hit, and get like the little overhealth. Like, as you can see, like that's not... Like Moira's healing. Her healing output, like raw healing output, is really high. But that's because that's all she's got. She doesn't have like utility in the normal sense, right? Her utility is that she can do, well, good damage and is a counter to popular tanks and DPSs. Like, let's not lie now. Genji is a very popular DPS. You'll see him a lot. He's actually quite good right now as well. So, Moira is going to receive a benefit whenever one of those characters is good. D.Va, I would argue, is quite good right now, especially after they buff that boosters perk. So now her boosters do like 50 damage if she collides with you. And Moira can counter and, more importantly, put pressure on D.Va, Genji, Sigma, etc. But generally, she is just quite good like at dealing damage. Like her damage doesn't look that high, right? Like what? That took me like 3-4 seconds to kill Tracer. But the thing is, you don't have to aim. Like you just need to look in the person's general direction and they'll be damaged, which is very useful for characters that can fly. Weirdly, like Moira isn't technically a hit scan, but she kind of is. And she can kind of like counter flying characters because she just has to look at them. She doesn't actually have to like, aim her shots or whatever. She just has to look at them and she does damage. She's a very, I don't want to say very skillless character, but very akin to her contemporary, that being Mercy. Her skill floor is very low. It's not hard to understand how to play Moira. You heal people whenever you can and do damage whenever you can. That is really simple to understand that you need to swap between the two forms as and when you need them. Like if you're healing your team and say you're running low on energy and they're like halfway healed, right? You really should in that scenario go off, do damage, get a bit more energy, swap back, do damage, energy, like, you get the idea, right? And that isn't particular. She's not very difficult. Most of the stuff you do is kind of done for you. Like your damage, as I said, you just need to look in general direction and you'll do damage. Kind of, you don't have to aim. They do it for you. Same goes for her healing, really. It's got quite a decent distance of 15 meters, and you kind of just like look in the person's general direction, just spray the yellow shit everywhere. Like you just spray the yellow shit everywhere, and it'll do, like as it says, 80 healing per hit or per second on hit is really high, all things considered. I think at least it's really high, and you also get the extra healing over time. Like, how much is that in total, actually? So 17 times 3, that's a weird number to multiply. It's like 51 healing over time, so 121 healing in total from just like kind of looking at a person and spraying them for like half a second. Like, her healing is, you know, really solid, but again, as I said, this is all she has. She doesn't have, her form of utility is the fact she can do damage. That's kind of Moira's deal. She does really high just raw healing and does decent damage to make up for the fact that, you know, she isn't doing anything utility-wise. Like, a character that I can kind of compare her to is like Zen, but Zen is kind of an interesting case where his utility as well is that he does really damn high damage, but he also has Discord, which is one of the strongest abilities in the whole game. So, like, and in comparison to him, her healing is quadruple whatever his is. Like, like Moira's healing absolutely washes Zen's, but that's all she has. Like, I'm not kidding. Anna is like Moira's worst nightmare because she can't heal them, and then all of her utility, like, she just becomes a DPS. If she can't heal the team, she becomes a DPS suddenly. It's weird. But anyways, to further add to that point of all she can do is healing and damage, we have a biotic orb where you create 2 orbs that you can pick between, which do different things. The first, so as a show obviously, you press E, you have 2 orbs, a yellow one and a purple one. Heal and damage respectively with their respective button inputs. Now the heal orb will travel and it will do 65 healing per second. When the damage orb is traveling, it does 50 damage per second. They both have a capacity, so once they do a certain amount of healing or a certain amount of damage, they'll expire. For healing and damage respectively, it is 300 healing and 200 damage. They both have different ranges. I didn't know that. The healing orb has 5 meters of range, and the damage orb has 4 meters of range. The on-hit regen rate, I believe, on-hit regen, does it regenerate your biotic grasp? I didn't know they did that. Huh, you get 5% per second per target, which obviously can be multiplied to, I don't know, say you hit like all 5 enemies with your damage orb, you're getting like 25% of your bar back. And the max duration for the orbs is 7 seconds. Whole lot of shit there, but it's relatively simple, again, to understand. If you want to do damage, you throw out the damage orb, and it will fly forward and hurt them. And it also I should note that it slows down when near a target. So if the damage orb is, you know, damaging someone, it will slow down. And the other one is the heal orb. You throw it at allies that might need healing, and they will be healed. Again, it just further emphasizes what I've already said. Moira does lots of healing and lots of damage, and swapping, and like this is where like the height of her skill ceiling kind of comes into play. It's the decision of what orb do you throw out, because admittedly, well, okay, I say that, but Fade, her other ability, does have kind of some skill to it, right? Kinda, sorta, maybe. Nah, I might be lying. Biotic Orb has an 8-second cooldown, so you do need to be aware of that. And you do need to kind of pick your orbs wisely. And I need to throw this in here. If you are ever in a Moira 1v1, never use the damage orb. Always use the healing orb. Many Moiras that I have gone up against will use the damage orb to kind of try and win the 1v1 to out DPS you. The healing orb will always come out on top because the healing orb does more healing than the damage orb does damage. Pretty simple to understand that. Yeah, this is where kind of like where the height of her skill level comes in choosing what orb to use. Like, I'm not kidding, Moira is like one of the easiest characters to play as, but unlike Mercy, she's actually really fun to play because obviously, I mean, DPS is a fun role. Everyone likes playing DPS, right? So when you get to play a healer that is basically a pseudo DPS, like that can actually do damage and do, you know, some fun stuff, no shit, she's probably going to be quite fun. But yeah, this is like the extent of her skill level. Like, choosing which orb to use and when to use it is kind of important, because if you don't have your heal orb ready, then say, like, I don't know, your other support dies, man, your team is dead. I know I said raw healing is really high, but like, that man, she can, you know, sustain a team if she has her orbs, but once those orbs go away, comes a bit of a risky time. But yeah, she just does, like, Moira's base kit, she just does a lot of raw healing or a lot of raw damage and not much else. This is like going up, we've obviously covered her weapon and her orbs. This is like her whole thing. Do damage or do healing. Simple, right? I'm trying to like extend this segment because I don't want this video to be like half at the length of the other ones, but like, Moira's not hard to understand. She's really not. You do damage or you do healing. Like, I could not give you any like secret tips that, you know, an experienced Moira player knows, because there isn't like too many differences out. Like, if you have good fundamental understanding of the game, yeah, you're going to be a better Moira than someone who's just picked her up, but you're not going to be that much better. Like, there isn't like, unlike other characters, right? Say, for example, let's pull up the hero roster, of course. There is a difference between a good Lucio and a great Lucio, right? There is a difference between a good Ana and a great Ana, or a good Brig and a great Brig. But there isn't that much of a difference between a good Moira and a great Moira, at least in my experience. I would say I'm relatively good at this character, but I wouldn't say that I'm, you know, I wouldn't say someone who's like really great at her has that much over me, really, if that makes sense. Like, there isn't like a key part of her kit which could cause someone to be like, if they're really good with it, they're way better than me. And that, speaking of, Fade. This is Moira's kind of get out of jail free card, I'm going to be honest. You disappear, you move faster, and become invulnerable, but you cannot shoot. It lasts for 0.75 seconds, you get an extra move speed bonus of 250%, and your jump speed is increased to 6 meters per second. It also cleanses you on use, so if you get hit with, I don't know, Ash's Burn or an anti-grenade, you can use this to cleanse it off of yourself. And just to show what it looks like, you press shift, and you enter the kind of like a shadowy form, and you get an extra bunch of movement speed. And if you jump, you also get a huge kind of boost in jump movement. This is, again, as I said, a get out of jail free card. Oh no, someone's dove me and I just run away, right? This is where like most of Moira's skill level kind of changes. Like, if you have really good movement on Moira, you can do, okay, not me though. Ignore that. If you have good movement on Moira, you can, you know, get yourself out of some really sticky situations that someone who obviously doesn't have good movement wouldn't be able to. But then again, as I mentioned, notice what word I used? Movement. That's kind of a fundamental skill of the game. And Moira's, like, Fade isn't like some crazy ability that you need to understand. By all account, it's an actually really easy ability to understand. Use it when you're affected with some form of debuff. Use it to get to your team quicker. Use it when you're under pressure from, you know, maybe a dive comp or something. And I'll discuss it when we get to perks, but there is a perk for Fade that makes it literally brain dead. Because the thing is with Fade, right? Part of the complexity with it, at least, is that you cannot cancel it. So when you use Fade, during that 0.75 seconds, you are out of the fight. You cannot heal people, you cannot deal damage to people, you can't throw your orbs, can't use your ult. So there is actually kind of like a skill level to knowing that maybe now is not the time to fade and I should just continue to stay in the fight to heal people, even if I am being actively damaged. So, like, that is where, you know, some semblance of skill ceiling can come from. But we'll get to it. As I mentioned, there is a perk that removes that fact. And as I also mentioned, there is a skill. There's some cool tech you can do with it. Like, I've seen some Moiras kind of rub themselves up against walls and be able to like scale entire walls with just Fade. But I'm not one of them. I will admit, those Moiras that can do that, you are better than me. But again, as I mentioned, it's not by much, right? It's not like a drastic game-changing difference, at least in my experience. But anyways, to move on to her ultimate, this continues, again, the trend that her entire toolkit has, that you fire a giant beam that heals allies and damages enemies. It does healing to you, like it does self-healing at 55 per second and 140 per second for allies you hit with it. It does 85 damage per second to enemies you hit with it. It lasts for 8 seconds, has a range of 30 meters. You get an extra 40% move speed, and your passive energy regeneration rate jumps to 200% for some reason. I guess that's to obviously give you full biotic grasp once you come out of your ultimate. But either way, just to show what it looks like, you press Q, you shoot a giant beam out of you, and it does damage to enemies, and of course can be used to heal allies. It goes through multiple targets, so you can, like, you know, heal multiple members of your team at once. And it also pierces barriers, quite interestingly, which not many abilities in this game really do. But yeah, this is kind of self-explanatory. Again, like, you use the ultimate whenever you see fit, right? Oh, the team is we're in a big team fight. It's a 5v5. Oh, my team's on a bit kind of like low health. You just use Coalescence. There's no reason really to hang on to this ultimate. This is kind of your third cooldown, at least in my experience, right? You kind of just throw this out whenever, I don't know, the situation's getting a bit hairy or you think you can do a good push, because you can deal damage and heal simultaneously. You can, because the beam pierces through obviously allies and enemies, you can just kind of heal the entire team and damage the entire enemy team at the same time, which does have some decent value, because obviously your team will be still fighting alongside you and doing their own forms of damage and healing at the same time. So yeah, it's a pretty decent ult, but again, it's just a lot of raw healing, a lot of raw damage, which is Moira's entire kit. And it's not particularly hard to understand, right? Look in the person direction and beam them. Like, it's not hard, right? It can be obviously, or can be used to counter Mercy, weirdly, or again, flying characters can get really hurt by Coalescence. 85 damage per second is not anything to scoff at, and if you manage to catch a Mercy flying around, you just kind of look at her and just beam her down. And I have no other place or anything to mention this, but she does have an April Fool's line where she calls it a Kamehameha, and that makes someone like me, a huge Dragon Ball fan, a very happy little shit. But anyways, moving on to her perks, the first of which being Destruction's Divide, where your ultimate can be toggled between pure healing or pure damage with 25% greater effect. This is a interesting perk on paper, but not really one that I would ever pick due to the other perk being Ethical Nourishment, where your biotic orb's first 30 healing is instant on each ally it encounters. That second perk, the biotic orb one, is really good. I'm going to be really honest, it's very, very good, because it applies or gives Moira a form of burst healing. That is kind of the one disadvantage she has, is that most of her healing is over time. Like, even her actual beam is still over time healing. Even if it is, like a lot of raw healing, it still is over time. But by picking that other perk, it does obviously allow you to kind of have a tiny bit of burst healing. It's not much, right? But it is helpful. Because if you, say, throw your healing orb into multiple allies, they all just get like a burst of 30 healing. And that can be really useful. And the thing is, the difference between these two perks is that one of them applies to your ultimate, which you will really only be able to use, like, say, where is all of my... Right, I have absolutely no idea how I just removed my HUD entirely. I think I pulled up some NVIDIA menu by accident when I was... Like, I fat-fingered something when I pressed Alt to show the perks. I have no idea what happened there. I do apologize for that. Anyways, back to my point. The issue that I have with like picking between these two perks is that one of them applies to just your ultimate, which is something that you'll use like 2-3 times a game, and the other one applies to an ability that you can use every 8 seconds. So one of them is just more consistent. It's going to be up more often. You're going to be using it all the time. Like, I just think the other perk is better in 99% of the scenarios that you're going to ever use it. Like, and I will be honest, the pure healing, pure damage thing with Coalescence isn't really enough for me. Like 25% greater effect sounds like a lot, but I don't think it's enough to justify it for me. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there is another perk that's here, but before we get to it, we have Reversal, where reactivating your biotic orb reverses its direction. This can be kind of useful for, like, when you throw an orb in an awkward position. It kind of like misses people, but you can make it come back. It's a fine perk, right? It doesn't really do much. I'm gonna be honest, it doesn't do much. Like, if it, if it made it so the orb does double effects on the way back, yeah, now we're talking, but it doesn't do that. It just makes the orb come back to you, which is okay. Now the other perk, Fade lasts 0.5 seconds longer and boosts jump height by 50%. Now you may be wondering, why have I hyped this perk up quite a bit? Because obviously I mentioned that there was something that makes it brain dead, right? Removes all of the negatives of Fade, of, being dragged away from the fight. So why would I be fond of a perk that makes Fade last for 1.25 seconds? That would take you out of the fight long enough that someone could die. Well, when you have this perk on, and I don't know why it's not mentioned in the description, you can cancel your Fade. You can cancel your Fade now. You could... they let you cancel it. This is a dumb perk. You can cancel your Fade in like half a second. Like if I just like spam shift, right? If I just like you can cancel it half a second in. So you can actually now use it as a removal tool. Oh no, I've been antied. You just immediately get rid of the debuff and now it's on cooldown for 5 seconds. But of course, on top of now being able to cancel it, you get some of the best movement in the whole game. Like, for a support at least. This is a get out of jail free card. There are so many times where I've been on death's door. Like, genuinely, if I die, there's like 3 people jumping me. I'm going to die, right? In any other scenario, I would have died. But because of this perk, I just completely get out of jail free. It's actually completely get out of jail free. I have played so many games as Moira with like one of my friends where I'm like, oh shit, I might die. I pop Fate, I've gone. I'm out of damage ranged completely. I'm just safe, completely safe. And usually by that time I've exited Fade. I've got my biotic orb, so I'm back to full health. Like that, this perk, right? This stupid perk, Phantom Step, this thing's going to be gone by the end of the season. It has to, right? This thing literally lets you get out of jail completely for free. You just, like, this is like Kiriko's, this funny, it's like a fraction of Kiriko's power. Like, Kiriko, as I'm sure many of you know, can teleport to an ally and basically get out of jail free, as long as she has an ally, right? But that is on a 7-second cooldown. Moira's Fade is on a 6-second cooldown, so it's shorter, right? And it doesn't require a target, more importantly. And with this perk, it is basically the Kiriko Swift Step. You will just use it and completely disappear from the fight, unable to be chased. Like, it is a get out of jail free card. Any threat to you, like, oh, I've been antied and Genji's diving me with Dragon Blade, God, you're just out. You're out. He will not be able to catch up with you. It's insane. And the extra jump height as well allows you to get to places that Moira otherwise would not have been able to get to beforehand. Like normal Fade, maybe I could make that jump if I tried, but with this, it's like piss. Like, you'd actually get up here instantly. It's not difficult at all. It makes her even more brain dead than she already is at times. Like, as I mentioned, her skill floor is not very high. Or her skill floor is very low, and her skill ceiling is not very high. And this only makes it worse. Like, that tech that I mentioned, like how some really good Moiras could kind of just like rub themselves up against a wall and like climb to the top of it. Now you yourself, well, okay, maybe you can't climb that wall, but now you can just like ignore trying to learn that tech because you have a perk that kind of just does the tech for you. And also lets you cancel your Fade. So the one negative that was holding Fade back, that, you get removed from the fight and can't heal people for a time, the negative doesn't even exist anymore. Because you can just press shift again and cancel it. It's so dumb. It's so stupid. It's the dumbest perk one of the dumbest perks in the game. Like, this is kind of, I kind of compare it to like Briggs perk. Like, Moira is a different character with her level 2 perk. Like, with this, Moira becomes unkillable nearly. Like, she becomes an absolute, like, unless you manage to sleep her, like stun her, sleep her, it's going to be really hard to pin down a Moira if she has this. You actually kind of have to play around Fade. You have to remember when she's used it and kind of catch her out when she doesn't have it ready. But it's very akin to like Briggs' second perk, that being Inspiring Strike. Like, Brig is a whole different character once she gets Inspiring Strike, because now she gets the 30 increased movement speed for 2 seconds after using Shield Bash, and, pardon me, Inspire's healing is instant when activated by Shield Bash. Like, that completely changes how Brig is played and makes her like twice as good, even into comps that she's shit against. And the similar thing is for Moira. Like, she's already pretty okay. Moira's kind of, this is weird. She's okay. She's never been like super meta, if that makes sense. Kind of. Like, I mean, I know she was included in GOATs she was part of that meta, but she was the one that was replaceable in that meta. Like, for those that don't know, Goats was a really overpowered team comp, heralded by Brig and Lucio, as well as 3 tanks. It was 3 tanks, 3 supports, right? Back when 6v6 was the main mode. And Lucio and Brig were, like, you could not take them out of the comp. The comp wouldn't work without either of them. Most people played Moira for the third option for the extra healing, but she was replaceable in that comp because you could use Zen for the extra damage. So, like, even the one time where she's included in, like, you know, big major comp, she was still replaceable. So, yeah, she's never been, like, insane, but she is very much a, what do you call it? A pub stomper? Like, she really dominates the low ranks. Like, what actually are the names of the ranks? Like, bronze, silver, gold, plat. Like, Moira's really good in those ranks, but once you start reaching, like, you know, diamond, master, grandmaster, that's when we should really be picking up characters with a bit more utility and a bit more skill, like a higher skill ceiling. Characters like Anna, Baptiste, you know, even though I have my qualms with her, Kiriko's obviously very good in high ranks. I would even argue Wu Yang is also very good in high ranks, even though he does also kind of just heal as well, but he's got some other shit to his name, right? Moira is not played in really high ranks, at least not to my knowledge. At least I don't think she would be, right? Because I feel like people in those really high ranks would prefer characters who have more utility but similar healing outputs. It's not like, it's the thing, right? Like, Baptiste and Anna's healing outputs are going to be lower than Moira's, but I'm sorry, you're trading a lower healing output for 2 of the best abilities in the game, 1 of the best ultimates in the game, and also 1 of the best abilities in the game in Immortality Field, and a pretty decent ult. Like, I don't know, feels like a fair trade-off, really. It feels like a fair trade-off for 3 of the best abilities in the whole game for less healing. Yeah, I'd take that. I'd take that deal. But yeah, anyways, Moira's gameplay, although I should say, I do find Moira very fun to play. Like, if we pull up the old career profile, Moira's here. Moira's my most played support if we want to go by hero levels. Not by time played, but... Oh, no, she is. Oh, I didn't know that. Whoops. Yeah, Moira's my most played support then. Yeah. I'm a simple dude, right? I don't really like I don't play comp too much. I think my highest rank was diamond, I think. But I like Moira. She's simple to play. She's simple to understand. Do damage, do healing. It's very fun. That's the thing. She's very fun to play as. Even if she is, you know, very simple and, frankly, not very super duper strong. But yeah, I like Moira. I am very fond of Moira. Even, obviously, though some people have qualms with her. I have personal qualms with her, mostly in relation to Mercy. A lot of Mercy mains get told to switch, and they decide to switch to Moira, and that does not solve the problem. If you are being told to switch off of Mercy, it's usually due to the fact that Mercy isn't really the play, or like, I don't know, that she's just not doing a lot of healing. And I don't really, I don't know. I don't know why so many Mercy mains have Moira as like their second support. Like, come on. Let's not play the 2 easiest supports. Let's take our time away from Mercy and dedicate it to a character with a higher skill ceiling and maybe with a bit more utility. Like, come on. Instead of having Moira as your second support, like, I don't mind if Moira is your main support and you have a second support that's like Bap or Anna. Like, oh yeah, okay, yeah, sure. Play Moira all you want, because I know if things go tits up, you can just use this character instead. I don't know if I can say that. I don't know if I can say that word. Either way. Anyways, you get the idea, right? Mercy mains, don't have Moira as your backup. Please, learn a support with some utility to their name. Mercy actually has utility, right? So why would you go from utility-less, or some form of utility in, you know, damage boost and resurrect, to someone who has none? Moira doesn't really have much utility outside damage. I'm going on a random tangent rant. Let's move on to talking about her design and cosmetics. Now, if I can be completely honest with you, I have always loved Moira's base design. Moira is a risk-taker character. And what I mean by that is that there is a lot of stuff here with Moira that is not conventional. It is not conventionally attractive, unlike her contemporary, that being, you know, Mercy. Mercy is conventionally attractive in the idea that, you know, blonde hair, blonde hair, blue eyes, you know, really pretty white woman. Moira, in fact, is a tall, very lanky, kind of slender, very androgynous kind of ginger Irish woman. She, too, does have very pale skin, but I just... How do I explain this? I just think she's, like, kind of a surprise. Like, Overwatch, for the most part, plays it very safe when it comes to designing their characters. The biggest example I have is Hazard. Hazard, despite his, nature and history and backstory as a punk, a revolutionary, like someone who is fighting against the system, has a very boring design. And I will go into that a lot more when we get to him. Very far down the line, mind you. But Moira feels like a weird risk that they actually took. Like, she's not conventionally attractive in any way. Like, the most you could argue is that, I don't know, she got white skin, right? But she's tall, which obviously is not like a conventionally attractive trait in a woman, per se. I don't believe any of this, by the way. I think Moira's really damn attractive. That's because my tastes usually lie in the things that are more unique, different, per se. Because I, myself, am not particularly a very normal person. But yeah, like, she's tall, she's lanky, she's very slender, very androgynous. Like, some of the, like, her initial cinematic, like, I'm sorry, you couldn't even tell that was like a woman or a man. Like, she was literally falling down this perfect line of androgyny, and I think that really works for Moira. Like, why would she care about looking masculine or feminine? She doesn't care. She cares about human evolution. She cares about science. She doesn't care about her appearance in the slightest. Like, she actually revels in the idea that people think that she's some maniacal, evil villain. Like, she enjoys that. And I really love that they've kind of, ignoring her actual outfit, like, as a person, Moira is very different looking. As I said, slender, tall, androgynous, not very masculine or feminine in any way. She has, like, virtually no traditional sex appeal either. Like, for example, if we go to Mercy, right, she has, like, I don't know, this weird, like, boob plate for some reason. I don't know why she's had this, actually, but you kind of get the idea, right? There is some minute form of sex appeal to her. Or if we compare her to a contemporary from Overwatch 1, like Widow. Yeah, there's some form of sex appeal here, right? But Moira's, like, anti-sex appeal, which is really intriguing to me. And I'm surprised they would take such a risk with a character. But actually, speaking of, like, say, her outfit, I love it. I love this look. I love the really over-exaggerated, like, sleeves look really lovely. They add, like, her silhouette is perfect. The massive sleeves, the weird kind of coattails that are very sharp, very rigid. This thing on her back, this, like, mechanism, has always looked really cool to me. I love all, like, the flowy purple, all the flowy tubes with the purple liquid in it. And whenever you use, like, her healing, all the tubes change color to be yellow instead. I always thought that was really, really cool. She does also have, is it called heterochromia? One of her eyes is red, the other is blue. I don't know if that's, natural or genetics related. It does also have the weird eye plate, which I've never understood why she has the eye plate. I would presume it's because, I don't know, like, we know that her body is withering away. Like, if we just look at her Overwatch 1 design, for example, her hand with the damage side of her arm is, like, very black. Like, the skin here is quite darkened. There's, like, kind of purple veins running across it. Like, there's clear signs of some form of damage. So I would presume that, like, I don't know, her left eye has, like, marks on it in some way. We know that, obviously, before her time in Talon and Blackwatch, she didn't have this faceplate. So I presume, I don't know, during her work for Talon, she did something or other, and maybe it backfired, and now she has the eye plate to cover up the scar of it. I don't know, but I really do love Moira's look. Like, she just has a weird, lanky appearance that feels like an actual risk was taken here. And for once in my life, I actually like the Overwatch 2 design a lot. I don't particularly like the color shift. I think the black is far more fitting than this kind of, like, beigey brown color. But this here is fantastic. This is a actual visual design that evolves, like, stuff that was left by the first. Like, in the first design, as you can see, the hand that she has that is using damage has, like, kind of paler skin. It looks almost decayed. You've got the weird marks running up it. And now we can see what has happened over time. We can see an actual evolution from her base design to this one of something having happened to her. She now has this literal monster arm, like this weird purple arm. Very, reminds me a lot of corrupt Merge Zamasu from Dragon Ball Super. She's got a lot of Dragon Ball references for some reason. Like, one of her April Fool's lines when you use her ult is Kamehameha, which of course is, you know, Goku's signature beam move. And she also has this weird purple arm that is a lot like corrupt Merge Zamasu. Like, I don't know, there's a lot of weird Dragon Ball references in her, but I love this purple arm. This purple arm is like actually fantastic. Like, when we saw her redesign for the first time, I was actually like flabbergasted. This is so cool. This is actually a visual indicator that her design has evolved, a sign of how far she's willing to go to just for progression, for some form of human evolution, that she's willing to turn herself into whatever this is. This weird, creepy kind of purple, like the skin on it and the way the veins are just bulging. It's disgusting to look at, but looks so cool. The rest of her design is relatively similar to her first. I will admit, there's not much like here to say. Like, the coattails are kind of still similar. I mean, the shoes have now lost that weird thing, whatever these things were, thank God. But yeah, like, I kind of wish the outfit was still, you know, black, but otherwise this is fantastic. I love the idea as well. Like, the tubes are now all kind of concentrated on like what looks like to be a restraint. Like, she's cutting off this weird infection from spreading to the rest of her body. I think that's really cool. I actually kind of wish that like maybe like this part of her neck here had like some small purple lines going up of it. Like, I think it's awesome. And she's also one of the few characters who is like visually aged. Like, if you look at her hair is the signifier, right? If you look at her hair in Overwatch 1, right? You know, normal ginger hair. She's got like grey streaks across the sides now. Like, she's actually visually aged. She's one of the characters who has actually changed. I mean, it's only been a year since Overwatch 1, at least in, you know, like the timeline from Overwatch 1 to 2. But she's visually aged. She has this weird purple line. Like, if all of this could happen in a year, what will happen to her in 2 years, 3 years? I know, it's really interesting. I love this redesign for once. My only qualm with it is obviously this kind of beige color scheme. I think they should have kept with the, like, black. I think the black fits her far better and kind of keeps her constricted into the idea of Talon. Like, if we look at the majority of the other Talon members, they all kind of keep the same color scheme. Like, Sombra from Overwatch 1 to 2 keeps the purple. If we go to Reaper, Overwatch 1 to 2 keeps obviously the blacks and reds. Doomfist as well, if we go from Overwatch 1 to 2, still keeps his general same color scheme. Admittedly, he does have quite a decent bit of white on him, so, but now he has added bits of black and red to further signify the Talon influence. But yeah, Moira's base design is fantastic. Like, both of them are really, really fantastic. And I'm glad I can say that for once, because most of the Overwatch 2 designs have not really done it for me, but Moira's does. And it still keeps like her weird, lanky, sort of unconventionally attractive look. That's a win. Now, moving on to her cosmetics, Moira has received quite a decent amount. I always like to talk about cosmetic distribution. She has received a decent amount, not to the point where it's kind of obscene. And I will admit, most of her skins have been kind of hit or miss. If I can be real, like this skin, it's really funny, right? It's a funny skin, like, because it isn't really that great. Like, this is a legendary, but this is kind of just a recolor of her base Overwatch 2 design with, you know, like the hat and the mime painting. Like, this is very much a bad legendary, all things considered. But, you know, it's funny. Me and my friend giggle over this skin sometimes. The Lilith skin is fantastic. This is one of her few collab skins. Is this her only collab skin? She's never gotten another one, has she? No. Yeah, this is her only collab skin. Very good pick. Looks amazing on her. I absolutely love, of course, the headpiece design. I've never played Diablo in my life, but this is such a good skin I had to buy it. And she also did receive the vampire skin this season. Is this? Yeah, it was this season, right? I'm not tripping. Yeah, this season. And thank God, this is an Overwatch 2 legendary that actually does something with the weird creepy arm. You'll notice that, like, say, if we go to Lilith, it goes back to her Overwatch 1 design where it covers up the arm. If we go to, say, Demon Queen, they don't do anything with the arm. They don't do anything with the arm in Plague Doctor. Celestial, Cyber Scientist, they don't really do anything with the arm. How do I even say this? Duo Wen Qiangwang, they don't do anything with the arm. Like, sorry, you created this really cool idea with the creepy, messed up, mutated arm, and you haven't done anything with it. it took you 19 seasons to give us a legendary that actually did something with it. Like, I think that's really dumb on their part, personally, but hey ho. But this does look really lovely. I love the weird kind of burnt skin look and all the red markings. It looks fantastic. This skin looks really pretty as well. Again, kind of, Moira has a lot of skins where she looks quite androgynous, and this is one of them. Like, if you looked at this person, would you be able to tell if this was a woman or a man? I wouldn't. And I think that's a perfect way to do skins for Moira. Keep the androgyny and lean into the weird, messed up body horror. That usually wins me over. This is a really good skin. I don't usually mention epics. This is a personal favorite of mine. I've used this skin quite a few times, just recreationally. How would you put that? I really love this. I love the rose on the eye, and the way they change the arm to be like kind of decayed wood looks amazing. If this was a legendary, this would be in my like top 5 of all time. This is a really, really good epic. Beyond that though, we have, I've already kind of, most of her Overwatch 2 skins have been kind of disappointing, almost. Like, they've either been not very nice to look at. Like, I don't really like looking at Plague Doctor. It feels kind of, it doesn't feel correct. Like, why does it have like a World War I look to it when Plague Doctors were around during like the 1700s, 1800s, I think. My history teacher would kill me for saying that, I think. But yeah, around that time. This doesn't, I kind of wish they actually did like a traditional Plague Doctor with like a long black robe and, you know, like the big hat, instead of this weird World War I mix. I know, this feels kind of messy. She does also have a mythic. I've always been kind of torn on this mythic. When they announced that they were doing a season based off of Eldritch Horror, I was really excited, because Eldritch Horror, or Eldritch Horror to me, has I've never been like super involved into it, but I always thought it had like really cool aesthetics, right? A lot of the stuff in relation to it looks really cool. Cthulhu looks really cool to me, right? But I'm not sure how I feel about Moira kind of being the mythic. Like, in a season where, you know, you're talking about Eldritch Horror, you would have thought like the mythic would be, you know, Cthulhu. You'd think that Cthulhu would be the mythic. Now, personally, I know he already has a skin. I know he already has Cultist, where he's kind of, you know, given a look of Cthulhu. But what if we took this skin and like turned it up to 11? Like, what if we actually just made him into actual Cthulhu? Because notice the name, Cultist. He's just a cultist in relation to an eldritch god of some form. And unfortunately, Moira's is as well. Like, Ancient Caller, she is a cult. She's like a member of a cult in dedication to an eldritch god. She isn't actually the god in question, which I think is a weird choice. And for some godforsaken reason, I know it's funny for like 3 seconds, but they gave Cthulhu to Torb. Like, this was funny for like 3 seconds, and then I actually think about it, and I get so angry and so frustrated that I want to kick a chair. I hate Season 9. I hate what they did with the Eldritch Horror theme. Half the Battle Pass didn't even have Eldritch Horror skins. They put stupid shit like bloody, what's it called? Where is it? Ringmaster Winston. Why was this in that Battle Pass? Why was the Ramen Bastion skin in that Battle Pass? It was so frustrating to see such, like, one of my favorite ideas that they announced just squandered immediately. And at the time, I was very angry with Moira getting it because I thought Zen would have been way cooler. Like, can you imagine if during Transcendence, Zen had like a bunch of tentacles flowing around and moving? Like, they could have just really brought Cultist Zenyatta to life. They could have really done something with it. And instead, they gave it to Moira, and I was really angry. And then they proceeded to do 2 support mythics back to back, and I got angry, and then 3 DPS mythics back to back, and I was just like, oh, I'm done. Season 9 was where I just kind of dropped off from the game for a while. I didn't come back to like Season 11 or something, I think. No, I did. I just, you know, I lie. I just skipped Season 9 entirely. I just didn't play it. However, I say all this, and as a skin, I think this is a really good mythic. Honestly, like, if you ignore the context in which it came out, this is a really, really good mythic. I can't really lie. It's got decent customization, 2 different weapons. I personally prefer the Thorn one. It's got multiple different face masks. I've always preferred the weird, kind of, you know, simple, actual human face, because I love the blank stare it has. It's got a few colors. I will admit that the colors are kind of suck. Like, the yellow and black one is this completely stone related one. This one's really lovely. This is my personal go-to combo, right? I love the fleshy look it has with like the weird like markings all over it and just the general color scheme of, you know, flesh. I love the fleshy look. And then we've got the black and green one, which does look very nice, actually. I really like the shade of green they chose, that kind of like almost turquoise look. Looks lovely. And of course, the aspects to this mythic justice. The black and gold looks amazing. And this kind of, what is even Iridescence's color scheme? It's like white, blue, and purple. White, blue, and purple, pink, kind of. This also looks really lovely. Like, aspects for Moira look fantastic. This is a really, really good mythic skin. Just like if you consider or don't consider the context in which it came out. But yeah, Moira is a character that I really do like. I really love characters who just like, I'm always going to be a bigger fan of villains because I always think they're more interesting. They are like, again, let's compare her to a contemporary. Mercy is really boring. A goody two shoes that will do no harm and Hippocratic oath, yeah, sure, whatever. That's realistic to a doctor, but it's very boring when you actually consider, you know, this is a fantasy game. We don't have to, like, you know, apply ourselves to the limits of reality and blah, blah, blah. So by extension, I'm going to like Moira infinitely more because she's evil scientist woman, experiment on bunnies, destroy herself, infect people. But like, Moira is an interesting character because you can feel her presence no matter where you go. You can feel her presence in the downfall of Overwatch. You can feel her presence in Talon. Reaper, Widow, Sigma, Mauna, potentially, all have links to her. These characters that are popular all have, like, just crumbs of her sprinkled in. Like, her touch is everywhere. And I like that a lot. And obviously her gameplay, although very simple and not particularly the strongest, is very fun to play. So I like her in that aspect. And I already just gushed about a design for, like, I don't know, how many minutes? 15 minutes straight? So you already know how I feel about her design. She's a net positive. I love her. I think she's a fantastic addition to the game. And yeah, I don't really have much more to say. So with all of that done and dusted, I thank you for watching this video to the end. Like, comment, and subscribe if you feel so inclined. And if you enjoyed it to the end, I hope you have a lovely rest of your day, whether it be a good morning, afternoon, evening, etc. And the next episode in this series will be on the latest addition to Overwatch. A controversial addition to Overwatch who I have many praise for and many qualms with. That being Wu Yang.